MVP Coffee Party.
I was born to eliminate.
Welcome to the next version of Windows Insider Beergarden. It's a perfect time in Germany's Oktoberfest. Drinking beer, eating some meat, and drinking more beer and sauerkraut and all of this. And what we have today here is the next version from Ignite. And I say hello to my co-host Hans Brender. Hello.
He's calling from Oktoberfest. That's unique. We are in Orlando. So I say also hello. The fourth day, tomorrow it's the last day, and now we have two other guests. And it's the best way you do it yourself. And
Sure. My name is Blair Glennon. They call me the chief data dude on the Windows Insider program.
No. Data kitten.
I don't think that one's been approved yet. I think that's still in the pending status.
Well, it's by design.
All right. And the other voice that you hear here is...
I'm Jason Howard. I'm the senior program manager here on the Windows Insider engineering team.
And you have to approve his status.
No. well, so his current status is chief taco hat officer.
That is correct.
Chief chocolate.
Yes.
Nice.
It's got a nice ring to it.
So you're happy about the lunch, oh? It's taco today? No.
Yeah.
It
was great. Like, Blair thought they were okay. I actually enjoyed them, but I just like tacos. So, anytime I get to eat tacos, I'm happy.
And you are the man of the webcast and Insider Mixer cast. And I saw you today in the morning, very early in the morning at the booth. So you have your webcast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Good turnout. Had some special guests come, walking by, random people from Microsoft, and put a few insiders on there, just, kind of randomly, just to say hi.
And then I saw you have a guest from the Office Insider team. Is it right? Or?
Yeah, Susan. Yeah, she stopped by to, try to rally some support for, her product and whatnot. It's always good to help out other teams.
Yeah, and that's kind of like our message here at Ignite is that, it's two insider programs, but we serve the same audience, that people that are on Windows pre-release builds are likely interested in Office pre-release builds, and there's a lot of new features that light up across both products when you are using Fast Ring or the weekly builds from the Office Insider program. In sets, there were certain things in RS5 that would only show up if you had Office Insider Fast and Whip Fast builds.
And I think, how many people are attendees coming to your booth and say, I have no idea from the Insider program?
Awareness is pretty high of the Windows Insider program. Awareness is also very high of the Office Insider program. I mean, it's been packed all week. I'm kind of superstitious, and I try not to look at the numbers during the event. Yeah. But last year at Ignite, we had over 1,000 people talk to us. So we had a bigger booth presence, and it seemed like it was packed the entire time. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're probably on the higher end of that.
And the favorite goodies this year, the goodies the people ask for?
Well, I'm seeing Hans wearing the scarf right here. We had the ninja cat riding the dragon.
Yeah, that was the best thing. People say, hey, it's cold inside. European guys don't understand. If you are outside, it's hot, hotter than hot. The humidity is very high. You come inside and it's frozen. And therefore, I have a little bit problem with my neck, and therefore this scarf is a very interesting thing. Otherwise, yes, I'm an insider too, though, therefore I have no problem with have to wear that.
Okay, for our attendees, I have to explain Hans is standing in front of us and is dancing while he's talking to us. So it's next time we need a video.
Yes, I think so.
That's funny.
Hans is dancing. Okay. That's really cool.
But we have to display. It's a room 3 to 4 meters.
Yeah.
So for 4 people, 1 desk. We have looking outside. That's like an aquarium. We are inside. We are the fishes, and we can talk to.
We actually have people talking or taking pictures of us from the outside.
I know, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I saw you have new devices with you.
Yes.
The Surface Go.
That's the Surface Go, and we talked yesterday a little bit about the Surface Go and the storage sense feature of OneDrive, that we can use more and more files and it's automatically clean up, and so we don't need so much space on our devices.
Yeah.
And you can buy it also in Germany. I saw one guy at our meetup, they come with a Surface Go and said, "Oh, I have a Surface Go, and what are you doing with it?" And it's like, okay, I'm using OneNote or sending emails or using Word or like this. So
it takes a little bit longer if these devices arrive Germany. It's a big ocean between. I was on vacation coming from with an RV trip coming from Alaska, going to Seattle, and I show my wife Bellevue, where the MVPs are always one times a year there, and going into the store, and there was what happened is he talking about not the possibility to have it. There is there. Okay, therefore. That's a little bit, we can talk, but it's not our thing.
No.
That we can at one time over the world, one device, if a new device comes out. Think about the other manufacturer with the A.
You mean banana?
I need banana, yes.
That's a new phone here
That's
on
a new
Ignite.
phone, you know that?
Okay.
That's a phone,
You know?
you change the color.
The banana phone?
Yeah,
Banana
that's
phone.
a little insight from the office team.
Outstanding.
For the attendees, you can grab your apples and bananas and all of this, and a lot of said, okay, we have the new banana phone. we have to switch from the Windows phone to the banana phone. And
they're the same color, right?
Yeah, the same color. Yeah, it's the same color. You can talk with it, and it's sweet. And and if it's too long in your bag, it's brown and smells sweet.
But we have to tell you that
Back
this
to the topic.
podcast is a special one.
Yeah.
So we do not have a podcast and taking about feature. You have seen our agenda, feature. Normally we do talking if you invite another MVP, and it's called MVP Coffee Corner or Coffee Party or MVP Kaffee Klatsch, the German version. You have to see girls go into a cafe talking about clothes, men or other stuff, and we are nerdies. We talking about Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you have a guest, people say, "Oh, do you have an agenda?" Yes, we do it 5 minutes before. It's a daily agenda. It's some political things, and we want to talk this. Okay.
Sounds like my webcast.
So that makes a lot of fun. Sometimes we come in another direction, and people like that because I want to have half an hour going to work and hear a webcast in the morning. We do not have it so strictly. Therefore, you have to know, we make some jokes on.
I don't know. It's great.
It's more the funny thing. So it's for the historical thing. It's podcast 26 or 28. I don't know. It's okay. We started. We make phone calls. We use Skype and make phone calls in the evening. Our wives are at bed, and we had a phone call, and we're talking about the idea. And sometimes we said, okay, we have to record it. And then, okay, let's record. And record it, and as we talk about it, how we record it and all of this, we go to Azure, deploying a web app. I brought the domains. We connect the domains while we are talking. And at the end of the first podcast, the website on the Azure web app with WordPress exists. And Hans is every time building the banner and the picture and all of this. And the audio thing. So today you don't have to do so much.
Today is a little bit special.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like the behind the scenes. Like, it's like you had a true insider podcast right there. Yeah. We're going to talk to you while we're building it. And then at the end, you're going to see it. Sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar. But the issue is that we are not sitting together. We do it completely remote. So, yes, we analyze that things you decide and record yourself on a PC, and I mix it together. and say to the people, hey, we are in a cafe, so I mixed also, I have a lot of coffee noise. So people realize, hey, it's a coffee.
Yeah, okay.
So
then we have to switch back. Okay, something to drink, and we can order a coffee. That's familiar. And this time we get the same sound. We have. Yeah, I forgot my cup today. So, but okay, we have water and Coke. And Blair has a Coke, and Jason too. And I have a Gatorade and something for the attendees as fruit punch, and you get also a blue one. Have you tested the blue one?
No, what's the blue one?
No, that's a blue one. It's grape.
What?
But it's it smells like you drink the Schlumpf. You know it?
No.
In Germany, it's Schlumpf. What is in English? It's
no idea.
It's a children movie or series with little
Smurfs.
The blue Smurfs with little blue mans and only one woman and
Smurfs.
Yeah. It looks like the drink.
It's a Smurf drink.
Okay. Like this. So it's a Smurf drink, and you get a blue. What do you mean?
Tongue.
Tongue? Yeah. That's so. Okay. Don't drink. Don't talk
drink
too
the
much
Smurf
about
juice.
it.
Yeah.
Don't drink the and don't talk about this. Okay. IT. We talked this week so much about IT, about new features and all of this, and also about new features of the Windows Insider for Business program, for example.
About what?
What Windows Insider program for business. Is
there
it right?
we go. That's absolutely correct.
Tell me a little bit more.
So the Windows Insider program is made of many different people, but we know that about 40% of them are IT pros. And so about 2 years ago, whenever Ignite Atlanta was, we were having this existential thought process of, hey, what does it mean to serve IT pros better with the Insider program? And one of our insiders who's actually here in Orlando with us, Eddie from First Citizens Bank, stopped by and he's like, hey, it would be great if I was able to submit feedback on behalf of my organization. So we took that back to the engineering team. We heard it from a number of different places, but it's great, right there. And then we launched it in Ignite Australia the following February, and it was at that point it was like you described your podcast being started. Like we're pulling together the things and telling people about it at the same time. It's like, hey, what can we do next? And over the last 6 months, 12 months, we've added new things that the community has requested. They're like, we want to be able to run we want to be able to run Insider preview builds inside of our organization. We want to be able to control it centrally. So meet us where we are. And we know that a lot of organizations have a mix match of like, what are they doing to control their environment?
So people,
sure.
It's not only for one device, it's for a device or more than one device inside the organization.
Absolutely.
An existing organization, and I can say, okay, we are inside the organization. Raphael's PC, your PC, my PC, you are out. you are inside. So that's what I understand.
Okay. Absolutely.
So Hans, you are an insider and a business insider?
We have to collect for the information for our listener, and they don't understand it. You understand it, I understand it too, but
okay. Step back.
I have
Jason
no
doesn't understand it, is what he's saying.
Apparently I'm not an insider.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a short story why I asked, because Hans wasn't a Windows insider.
What?
And he had a great story and talk with Joe Camp and said, okay, you have to be a Windows insider. Then Hans is a Mr. OneDrive, and he wants to test the new OneDrive version. So
how are you going to test the new OneDrive versions without
insider? Yeah. Now he's an insider.
Good.
I have seen the versions that will come with the new in the September and so on. And I think, what the fuck? So I have to say,
it's your crystal ball right there. See the future with the Insider builds. Come on.
So
that's a story from Mr. OneDrive.
OneDrive as himself his own cyclus, therefore you have no problem. But now it depends together with Storage Sense inside with Windows with the newest Windows version. But it was in the past. It was 2 years ago at Ignite, and I said to Joey, no, I have such bad experience, and you need more feedback. It's not only that we can give feedback during explanation, what we have, although it must be, it's a two version. Not only a street where you can drive this direction, must be also in the other. And that I do, and therefore I want to be,
And that's a part of the Windows Insider for Business program. And also, as you are an administrator, you are a part in your company, you see what your company or your colleagues send for feedback. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. In the feedback hub, you can see the feedback from within your organization, and so you can create your own internal insider program and see the feedback. You have your own community of insiders inside whatever your organization is.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that was asked for that doesn't exist currently, but I have high hopes for, right? Because it's a really good suggestion. Is for those businesses that are participating in the WIP for Biz program, they want their feedback to potentially be private to their organization, right? The way that it's set up currently is it gives them a way to filter it so they can see it centralized, right? Because right now, if you go look in the feedback hub as an individual user, you see everything, right? There is a my feedback tab so you can see your own history. But if you are trying to find something specific that was filed by an individual, a particular business, right? It's not easy to sort it. So in participating in the WIP for Business side of things, there's the avenue to create it so you see everybody in your organization. Well, for some companies that are working on, let's just say they're working on secret apps or something that they haven't deployed yet, right? There is a need for them to be able to share that, to say, hey, this new build came through. I'm having problems with this application now. Something changed. We need to follow up and see what's going on. But they don't want that to end up in the broader feedback hub that everybody sees. And so there's people taking pictures. It's kind of funny. And so they want it to be private. And so that's something, it's a good concept. I totally respect it. Yes. It doesn't exist currently. So
that's the next level. The next level for things, not only broad, special for companies, mid-sized companies or enterprise companies, special roles with different machines and filter it out. That's a new approach to get in.
It's a really good suggestion, and I think it's something we should implement. Like I said, it does not exist currently, but we don't just take feedback on, the OS builds or Office builds. There's more to the program itself. We get feedback on, and if we're not growing and evolving the program, then we're not doing the entire job.
So in the next few days,
next few days we'll be traveling back to Seattle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, I am standing on stage on Monday again, talking about OneDrive. Next few days, it's about, we will have a new version will come for all the other people, and therefore I find it's interesting what between 1803 or 1709 to 1809, that's a story. It's involving that you see what happened in there. Many features will come, going into the settings and all this stuff, and not in a separate program. So now it will better and better.
Yeah, and you need a website where you can see where which feature in which build and which build is in which ring and all of this. And I know someone in this room built this website, or
so it wasn't me. It was actually Brandon.
It was Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Brandon. I don't know if it's going to end up as a PWA, so a progressive web app. Like I don't know if it's going to end up there, but there was. Every time we launch a build, we create a blog post, right? Yeah. And as you mentioned...
That was very interesting. In the beginning, there was no blog post.
Yeah, no, there was just like, hey, we're going live. Oops, there it is. So each blog post, it contains details on, hey, these are the new features you should test out. Here's some new functionality. Here's some bugs that we have fixed, for one build, two builds, however old the bug may be. And then, hey, here's some new bugs that you might want to pay attention to, right? It takes all of that to be a really good comprehensive post. But one of the questions that folks would always ask us is, I don't know if I'm on the most up-to-date build. Am I on a build that's 5 builds old? Did I hit a bug that's keeping me from updated and I simply don't know? So we needed a place that shows this is the most recent build. This is when the build was launched, and a ton of other data to that effect. And so what Brandon LeBlanc, one of the people on that I work with, he created the Flight Hub. And so the Flight Hub shows for the fast ring, the slow ring, skip ahead, release preview, even IoT and server. It shows the history of the builds that we have released, when they were released, and then as they progress through the ring, so like from fast to slow, when each build hit those particular rings.
There was 2 things that I have found of all these releases. The switch, that most of the work for an update of the operating system was done in the background. And I also feel that if I have a feeling with my hand that I got a new version because it's a little bit hotter. But then it's a quick way to have it.
Yeah.
That was a milestone for me.
Yeah. So one of the things that there was a lot of work done between, and I'm just going to use the code names, right? So RS3 to RS4 and even into RS5. So to go to the proper names that people notice. So 1709, 1803, and now into 1809.
Okay.
There's this entire concept for deployment we just call it internally, we call it NEO, right? It's just an acronym. But the premise behind NEO is like a non-event upgrade, where for an end user, they don't want to spend 2 hours taking an update, right? That's one of the things that frustrates people is anytime I see it start doing the update process, I can't use my computer and I just have to walk away. And it's frustrating because people are trying to do something. So the entire concept of NEO, it is to say, hey, we have this important update we're going to push to your machine, right? Tons of new features, there's bug fixes. We really want you to have this. But we don't want to take your time unnecessarily away from being productive, doing your job, hanging out surfing the internet, watching Netflix, whatever you want to do. It's more important to you to do that than to take the update, right? So the whole NEO process has been taking things and like a typical deployment, the build arrives on your machine and you say, restart my machine to install the update, right? There's certain processes that happen before you click the restart button, and that's called online time. So it's all this prep work that happens. And then once you click the button and then you get the blue screen with the percentages and the spinny dots where you can't use your machine, that's called offline time. The team has done a really good job of taking stuff that used to happen in the offline time and moving it into the online time. So that's when you might feel your machine getting a little warm, right? It's doing these processes in the background, right? And it runs at a lower priority depending on what you're doing with your machine. So it may take a while to unpack. But from some of the data points that we've seen, and this is something we've talked about publicly, I'm not releasing secrets here or anything. If you rewind 2 years, an average update would take almost an hour and a half, so 90 minutes, right? Now, the average update, and you can think of everything from the super fast Surface Book 2s all the way down to slow Snapdragon processors that they're not the fastest things ever, right? It's going to take longer on a lower spec machine. The now average time, we're down just under 30 minutes. Right? Okay. So that's a huge difference. And on some of the fastest machines that we have out there, like I have a Surface Book 1. It's an i5. It's not even the i7. It's an i5. I timed it with a stopwatch. From the time I clicked restart to start the update till the time I was back at the desktop logging back in, 11 minutes to take an update.
And so if we continue that process of improvement from an hour and a half down to a half hour, next time it'll take negative 30 minutes for you to update your device.
And another thing, what we are on the way. You are a little bit more days here in Orlando. I'm at 8 days in Orlando. I do not want to have to update my machine. The 7 days is a small amount. I was 3 weeks with this machine.
With the Surface Pro.
And the vacation. You cannot have it. And I have to upload in Canada.
In the forest.
In the forest. Yeah, I know. The time is spinning what you can suspend and you want to have it. but sometimes you want to go on a vacation, and you are not going on a vacation only for 7 days.
Right.
No, you have to work always. No. But I want to go in vacation mode a little bit longer. So thinking about that. This is only.
You can go to the feedback hub now and report
Yes, I
it and
know,
re-upload
I know,
it.
I know.
That's
Perfect.
not the problem. So,
Yeah.
and once more, we talk about so much information, and I saw you released your documentation to docs.microsoft.com. So also Windows Insider for Business documentation,
Yeah.
and we tested some minutes before. We switched it to German and it works. So you can have it also in German for the attendees of Germany and Europe or in the other languages.
Yeah.
And
We put
I love
this information in the speaker
in
links.
the speaker notes and the links. And one of the great things is if you have a GitHub account,
Yeah, if you have
what you can do.
So I don't speak German very well,
Yeah.
so I'm going to switch over to the English version here. But so Jason started talking about Flight Hub, which is like how you know if you're up to date with your insider builds. Above that on our documentation on docs.microsoft.com, there is a section for Windows Insider Program, which is more of the consumer-focused features. Internally, it used to be called Brandon's Guide to Awesomeness, and it was a Word document that he posted on OneDrive, so we moved a little bit beyond that. And in there, like, we list every single feature that has been talked about in RS5. Okay. And it starts as the blog posts, so we pull in everything that Brandon writes. But what Raphael, you were talking about is if you see something that's new in the builds that isn't in the documentation yet, or if you want to tweak something, there's actually an edit button here. And so the edit button, Raphael, you're sitting next to me, so you can see this. This is a GitHub experience right here. You can see my branch. We have pull requests. If you go in, I'll try to pivot.
Hans comes around the table and have a look.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
And we have version histories and everything, so you can go in and see that, like, this 192 lines. It's got 2 contributors. These are actually some of our rock stars back in Redmond. Don Wood is the person who goes in and checks the request and is like, yeah, this makes sense. It's factually correct. And pushes the commits into the main branch.
Yeah, we don't let people make random edits.
Yeah.
We also try to avoid obscenities.
Yeah.
One question: how many insiders do you have now?
Millions. We have 15 million.
15 million.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how many feedback comes from the 15 million?
Yeah. It's like terabytes of data per month.
No. Petabytes.
Petabytes of data per month. Yeah. So there's a lot of machine learning algorithms that are going through.
You have to filter all these stuff
filter it
together,
down,
yes.
and we have some really talented data scientists working on it back at Microsoft. Too many to name. And all working on different elements of it. It's like, are we looking for sentiment for this? Are we looking for what kind of feedback this is? Like, if you look at how the feedback hub started, you had to select which category you were going to where you're going to categorize with. Now, if you type in if you're like having problems updating, you'll notice it automatically tries to put it into the Windows Update category or the problem with an update. Hey, machine learning, it's all that. So that's how we handle that just fire hose of data that's coming back to us.
Yeah, and it'll even show you a few options, right? It'll default to what it thinks is the closest, but right below that, it'll say, here are some other options, and it'll list 4 or 5 more options in case it didn't get it quite right. It's like, this would be my second best guess or my third best guess, right? And if it's completely wrong, hey, you just make the adjustment.
Yeah.
But by making the adjustment, you're hoping teach it.
Yeah.
And so it gets better the next time.
And it's just how AI works. That it's giving you its best recommendation based off of probabilities. And so the probability needs to have its own
In other words,
reinforcing.
if I give feedback, it goes very quick. You don't have to filter in all this stuff and say here and here. I have a problem and I want to get feedback to go to there. Now you have only 2 or 3 and this filter automation is automatically is there. That's the best thing what we have with machine learning.
Yeah,
which is why you hear like whether it's in any of my webcasts that I've talked about it or just in some of the blog posts we make mention about it is giving good feedback. right?
Yeah.
It's super important to have a short and clear title, something that's easy to understand. But then you have the free-form text box where I think you get 2,000 characters to type in, I was doing such and such, or every time I visit, a particular web page in Edge, it crashes the browser, right? If like listing the steps to do the repro and all that kind of stuff, making sure you include the app name. If you have a particular build number that you started hitting the error on, include that, right? Just some relevant details to help us identify, and then the machine learning picks up on that and it helps it refine. So not only does it help your fellow insiders to know if they're experiencing the same issue or is it slightly different, it helps the machine learning become more accurate as well.
Sometimes it's not easy for end users to understand the completely concept, where is the bug. Let's tell that was a thing that you have to identify. Early in the morning I have to manage one Excel sheet with this machine every day. How many days I do not have smoked anymore, and that's inside. But the problem is, I do it not with the mouse. I do it with my fingers. Point to the next cell. It doesn't work. Point to the. You can select a line. You can select a row. Whatever. That works. I found a round thing to do that, but having what is that? Is that the Excel problem? Yeah. So after the
or
next,
is it a Windows Touch
or if the
system?
Windows, whatever, it was a Windows Touch system from this release.
Yeah.
The next release, it is gone. But to identify for several people, people say, hey, that's an Excel problem. It was not an Excel problem. That could be very, very tricky about that.
Yeah. There's some bugs, like so the deployment space, and I know we talked about deployment, but like this, it's a really good example here. The deployment space is difficult. It's extremely difficult, right? Making sure people get the right build, that part's actually fairly easy, right? It's like, what build are you on? What edition are you running? Are you running Home or Pro, Enterprise? Which language are you running, right? So you understand your language, and then it understands what region you're in, right? This is all just basic information that's on your machine. It's like, okay, yep, I understand this, and here's the next version that applies to your machine. Let me send it to you, right? That part, that's the flighting part of things, and it gets sent down. Okay, relatively straightforward. Where it gets difficult is when it starts unpacking, right? Do I have enough space on the drive, right? So I need to unpack this. I need to grab your user information and stick it over in a separate partition to hold it safe so I don't accidentally delete it, right? But then what we see, like especially during the development cycles, what we see is people will be like, oh, I got to 27% and my machine rolled back. Or I got to 84% and my machine rolls back, right?
In our community.
And a lot of it has to do, especially once you get later, like so the higher percentages, so 70%, 80%, right? That's when it starts injecting drivers in. Right? So it's not necessarily the new build that's the problem, right? As it starts trying to re-inject drivers, or if it's grabbed a new driver that it's trying to inject while it's doing the update, all of a sudden you have these collisions and it's like, I can't finish this, and it rolls back. And the automatic assumption is, oh, there's a problem with the new build. Yeah. A lot of times it's actually not the new build that's the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
And even more than that is, there was an insider who's in Skip Ahead that stopped by the other day. He's on build 18204. He's stuck on an old Skip Ahead build. And go through, grab his machine, start looking at the logs, and there's an Apex package deployment problem with his machine. It was an old bug that was around for 2 builds. Right? It didn't last very long because they caught it pretty quick. But the deployment team didn't even know it went externally because we didn't get a lot of feedback on it, right? Yeah. So having found this, we're like, oh no, it actually did go external. Here's an example of it. They already have 3 separate bugs internally tracking because there's multiple root causes to what causes this Apex deployment to fail. Yeah. So even though there's one symptom for the end user, hey, my build update fails, right? There's actually one underlying cause. But there's 3 different problems that lead to this same scenario. And so it ends up being this. It's an entire basket of things that can cause the same problem. And so you never know whose fault it is until you actually finish your your investigation and your troubleshooting.
Cool. So, okay.
long story short.
Long story short. Bring your feedback into your feedback hub.
Give us feedback.
Give us more information.
Sometimes it's very interesting because sometimes, Raphael and other people are also administrating a Windows group with 6,800 people. Mm-hmm. And several people comes in and have a problem with that and that. And so many, we don't do it actively. Sometimes in the evening I do it here and give some information free because of the time zone. People come around the globe. And that's the same situation. Very often it's a problem of the underlying system and not from the non-user. What you are saying is completely correct.
Yeah, that's a result of also these. We are 70% and then it's rolled back, and that's Thank you for the explaining, and we can translate it in German and push it in.
Yeah, we have to translate it. That's a problem about that.
So, a little bit back to the title. I know we talked along. I don't know how long we have, but a little bit back to the title. We have a Surface Book Go here. We have a Surface Book Go, a Surface Go here, Surface Book 2, and a Surface Pro, and all of this. And who of you is a developer?
I actually do not. I do not code.
No.
Back in. I don't know what you call it in Germany. In the U.S., we call it high school, right?
Yeah.
So
high school is
high school.
Okay, cool. I took a couple coding classes in high school, but when I went to university, I ended up studying economics, right? I didn't go and get a computer science degree, so my focus changed a lot. And even though I work at Microsoft now, I have opportunities to code, but I've got a lot of work to do in my regular job. So it's more about, for me, it's important to me. It's something that I want to do, but I have to make the time for it. And for me, that's the problem right now. Is the breadth of things that I'm focused on is so big that trying to cram something in that's that intensive and takes that much time, I haven't yet made the time for it. I just need to prioritize.
Yep.
I think I took coding in high school as well, and it didn't really stick. So I spent 7 years as a consultant, and I spent a lot of time working in SQL. But for my graduate degree, I actually SQL. Yeah, everyone loves a little SQL. For my graduate degree, I actually have a concentration in business analytics, and so I spent a lot of time working in R. And so that's kind of carried forward. We don't use R directly with the Windows Insider program ourselves. We use actually an internal language that's a mix-up between SQL and C#. That's where we spend a lot of time looking at data with that language. That's probably when I open up Visual Studio, that's what I'm working with.
Okay.
You are more the SQL Server and SharePoint.
Starting with SQL Server, yes, in the old days. I starting very with an old CPM machine. It's very, very low, and have a lot of basic programming. But sometimes you have to say, okay, it's good enough.
Yes.
Yeah, and but then you have a job, and then you have to write PowerShell code. Yeah. If you learn one language, you can also do the other language. There is another syntax, and if you know what programming is, then okay. To read PowerShell code, it's okay, but I do not want to have it daily. Let's say sometimes, but not daily. And I don't want to program anymore. No, it's different. Working in a team and all this stuff, what you now are available, having AI in Visual Studio. If you look for an API, that was for me the greatest thing on Build, that they say, hey, you have an API here, and then, an API, you can have the parameter switching and so on, and then he looks what other people around the globe with machine learning or AI and display this function or this role for the first with a little point that you now see, hey, other persons do that. That might be not the right thing, but most of the people doing that, though the chance is a little bit bigger that you do the right things also. So that, yes, but I do not program anymore. And you?
For me, Yeah, I was a Microsoft Students partner, and then we learned to program, and we have lessons for C# and all of these traditional Microsoft languages. I talk traditional because you talk R. R is some of the newest hot shit like this. And I started with Windows 10. It was easier because of the Linux subsystem, and also with Hyper-V you have a very fast opportunity, only 3 clicks, and you have a Linux machine.
Yep.
On Hyper-V you have your subsystem, and you have Visual Studio Code on every device, and also in my Ubuntu system, and also on my Windows 10 PC. And so I started with connecting with the APIs, Microsoft Graph. We started a little bit to code. We have to. We switched from PowerShell, or what's this for me? I switched from PowerShell more into the coding area, and also what I have to do, I started with mixed reality, because I have a Windows mixed reality headset, and now, it's very funny to play, for example, Star Trek games, or running through the room, or having a whole and so on. But for me, it was I want to know how it works.
Yeah.
And I want to know, let's try it. And I installed Unity. It's for free. It's using Visual Studio community version, Visual Studio Code. And for me, it was very easy to start with. And that's so, everyone code a little bit on a day. For example, you editing, for example, the websites. That's the view, but
it's also some coding.
Right.
So it's interesting, right? People that learn to code, either they have a natural curiosity for it and they just want to learn, right? Yeah. So they'll go out and they're inspired to do it. So they're going to go they're going to have this appetite for it. They're just going to go do it. But I will say that most people that I've met along the way that didn't intentionally go study computer science and learn how to code is because they needed to do something, right? Yeah. They have a specific thing they're trying to accomplish. And there's where they're at, and at the end of the tunnel, there's this solution that they're trying to get to. And they find that the path to get there is to do a specific bit of coding. Right? Like for me, I used to do a ton of data work in Excel. And so... I know, And so I used to write these really long formulas, right? I would spend hours researching formulas, nested if-then statements. It was ridiculous, right? I mean, it worked, but the amount of effort it took to get there... I've wasted a lot of time, right? And then all of a sudden I realized there's like Visual Basic in Excel, and I'm like, wait, what? Right? And so then you start doing this, and you let the code do the heavy lifting, right? You're not sitting there writing these long constructs trying to get the manipulation to get where you want to land, right? And so whether you're doing something in PowerShell, you're doing something in VB, or you want it, like you mentioned, doing a website, right? There's templates to get started with, and then you make adjustments. Like say there's a template and it's green and you want it to be blue, right? You learn hex colors, right?
Yes.
And you make a couple changes, right? That's coding at its very basic, right? You're operating within the confines of the language, and you're doing something that you want to do.
Well, and there was something that so we had a session here. We had several sessions here this week, but we had Donovan Brown, DevOps guy, come on, and he gave a 5-minute overview of, hey, this is what DevOps is. And one of the things that he said that like really resonated with what you just were talking about is never send a human to do a machine's job. And so it's kind of like, hey, this is something that we can all do. Like, why spend time typing out those Excel formulas when you can have VB do it? Before we go past the coding example, earlier this summer I took a Microsoft edX partnership course, Introduction to Artificial Intelligence. It was a fun like starter course for like, hey, how does AI actually work? But it was really good for me at least to learn how Azure takes some of these things that I've written in R. And visualizes them to this like GUI format, and it's like instead of having a function where you have 2 arguments at the beginning, you have arrows that you drag into here, and then you watch this flow come through, and you can train and test an entire regression model in this visual thing without actually typing any codes. Yeah, you got to fill in a couple variables, but it all works out pretty well.
The problem is the time has changed. In the early days, you program only on your system. Then file server comes. You put a route going to the SQL server, got some rows back, and manipulate and display it. And then Azure and the cloud come in, and then you have only little jobs that you have with Azure Functions. It's a complete changing in all this stuff.
But that's why you don't need a Alienware, high expensive.
No, you could use Surface Book, the Surface Go here, and pull up that Azure ML thing and be this thing's pretty. There's no compute required on the end user device, and it's all just running up in the cloud.
And it's interesting. What do you say about the 3 days here from Ignite?
3 days. We've been here for 5 days.
Yeah.
You got here late.
It's been a lot of fun, right? I mean, I got to see some familiar faces, right? It's always nice seeing you guys when you come into the conferences or the MVP Summit or whatnot. But there's always new people to meet. Like, I'm on Twitter a bunch, and there's people who I would recognize their Twitter handle, but they come and walk up and they're like, "Oh, hey, are you North Face hiker?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I've got a question mark on my face because I look at their name badge and I'm like, "I don't know who you are," and they're like, "Oh, I am so and so on Twitter." I'm like, "Oh," right? And so getting to put some of those names with the faces and make that actual personal connection, it goes a long way. But like for our team, what's super important is meeting people who have tried to do something and have either hit a bug, hit an error, or they have feedback for us, right? So not just in sitting stuff to the feedback hub, right? We talked about that earlier, but listening and actually trying to recreate some of the problems that people have hit, just getting some of that personal story behind it, it helps inform us of what we need to do next. And if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm trying this, I would like to be able to do this as well," it helps spawn ideas for me to say, this is something we should do next, right? And it kind of ties back to what I mentioned earlier, that the program's always evolving, and if we're not changing, we're not doing our jobs. It's absolutely true. So there's been a lot of that this week of talking to people that are like, I don't know about this, or I don't know how to get started. I'm not confident in getting started. And so for me, it's like, I need to go back and write a white paper on the value of WIP for business, right? There's some updated documentation I need to publish to our website. And then, once people actually use it and test it and get going with it, we'll iterate on it again and again and again.
Your last words?
Yeah. My last words on the 5 days here at Ignite. I love coming to Ignite. I spend a lot of time in the data, and there is something very powerful about putting the human face to the data points that we're talking about. But very selfishly, it also exposes our blind spots, because we see things in data, and you don't know what you're not collecting data on until somebody tells you about it. And you're like, oh, crap, I need to go back and look at that. It's maybe something's broken in the pipeline that comes up, or maybe we're not capturing something, or maybe it's like, especially if we're talking about cross-Microsoft products, that there's no way that we get visibility into how somebody is going to potentially use Microsoft Ideas or Microsoft Learn from the Windows perspective without talking to our friends over in Office, without talking to our friends over in Azure. And so being able to say, yep, this is what our customers need. This is what we got to go drive to make the Insider program better. And so it's putting those human stories behind the data is what I really appreciate.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. It's
one more thing. Yeah,
just one more thing. Just one more thing. Really, it's two buckets, right? There's the technology and there's the people, right? You put those two things together and you get a conference like Ignite, and then only good things can come from that.
That was a perfect answer.
Perfect answer. We have to close now. no, we have to go. It's the same like in the MVP Coffee Party. There's someone outside and said, okay, we have to go out and you have to love the coffee and all of this. And okay, I go paying for our coffees and cokes and all of this. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason, for this.
Thank you.
Awesome podcast session. And Hans, you have the last word.
This Ignite was good. Next Ignite will be better.
There we go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you much.
I was born to